open anyway, and that's kind of the vibe. It's very casual, it's very informal. Hello, everybody. Hello, passengers. You've joined us for another episode of the Ouroboros Express Devlogs. This is part 2 of the voiceover special edition, luxury, electric boogaloo. We'll think of something really good. But yes, as you can see, I've got my friends, my colleagues, my teammates with me. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. So we've got some of the crew from part 1, but we've got some new faces as well. Hello, Cece. But what we'll do is, before we get into everything, I'm going to just tee us up. So in the first part of the voiceover special, we talked a little bit about the auditioning and casting process, and we creeped a little bit into what happens after the characters are cast and production. But this time around, we'll be going in deep. We're diving in deep, folks. So while we might have touched a little bit on that stuff, we're going to be diving into way more detail. So before we get into the juicy stuff, let's introduce our lovely guests. I'm going to send it over to Sean. Would you like to introduce yourself and the role you've played in the game?
Hello, I am Sean. I play Urshu in the Ouroboros Express.
Oh, sure. And Alan, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Hi, I'm Alan, and I was the voice director.
And Cece, hello, over to you.
Hi, I'm one of the VO production assistants for the Ouroboros Express.
And so much more I have to add, but we'll talk about our multifaceted, multi-classing people in Smallin as well. And last but not least, over to you, Alison.
Hello, I'm Allison, and I voice Vivi in the Ouroboros Express.
Yes, so, okay, let's get into it. Well, firstly, I'd love to talk about the characters, because the Ouroboros Express is very much a narrative-driven, very character-heavy. And I'd love to pitch this over to our voice actors in the room. So you get the email saying that you've been cast. What happened after that? Can you talk me through, like, what was going through your heads and what happened immediately after?
Well, I got the email very late at night, 'cause Lindsay sent it over from the States, and I'm over in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And my extremely pregnant wife was asleep, so obviously I woke her up to say, I got the part!
My darling pregnant wife!
And she was like, oh, that's lovely. I'm going to sleep again. But I'm so proud of you.
Aww.
But yeah, I was very excited to get it, and especially getting the part of Urshu, who I was like secretly hoping. I was like, yes, I hope I get that one.
Yeah. How about you, Alison? What was it like getting the confirmation, and where was your head at?
Yeah, I immediately told my parents. I was like, "Mom, I got this voice acting part." She's like, "Oh, is that good?" I'm like, "Yeah." I feel like I'm always doing so many projects. She's like, "What is that?" I was super excited. I immediately messaged Lindsay and was like, "Hey, can I get the script and blah blah?" And she was like, "Oh, you won't get that till much later, probably just a couple days before." And I was like, "Oh, okay," because my mind was like, "Be prepared, read it all." And so I was like, "Oh, this is how it goes for voiceover, not memorize it, but go as you go."
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that's the thing that I feel like I've been very much surprised by, because I've been a bit of a film geek, and I always watch loads of behind the scenes stuff on film, and the thing you always hear is they get all of this preparation and all of that stuff ahead of time. But with voice actors, it truly is
we get nothing.
You get the script. All right, good luck. Yeah, the day of. Is that what you were saying, Sean?
Yeah, usually I'll get a script the day of. This was a little bit strange in that I got it the day before, so I was like, "Ooh, I get to read
luxury."
Because I actually printed the whole thing out because I prefer working with paper, so I could write notes on it, and I had I think it was 18 pages of just Urshu's lines, but because during at the time that from beginning to end we did 4 sessions, and Alan was like, Sean, you're reading the line wrong. And I was like, no, it's written here. But they'd gone in and changed lines in
There
between
were some
sessions.
late-breaking edits.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, so I had to go back and I was like, give me a sec, let me print off the new lines, and then we're all fine.
Yes, I mean from behind the scenes, yes, we did, and Cece is actually on the writing team as well, so you've got a unique insight into this. So we had a tone pass because we wrote the original game in a month, and then there were some obviously slightly wonky things about the dialogue that we wanted to clean up, or certain things like the avatar of Asha saying a contraction in a place where she really wouldn't at that stage in the game. She's always like using the royal we, she never says I, so just kind of like keeping an eye out for that type of stuff. So that kind of stuff would have been updated in that time that you would have gotten the script essentially. So yeah, that's a bit of insight from our side of the production. And so in terms of like, so I'm guessing in terms of like materials you guys were given, you had the side, so you knew what the character art looked like, but did you guys get anything else?
No, I think it was just the art and the original sort of blurb and the few, I think 3 lines of the character.
Yeah.
Like we had the opportunity to play the game, and I know Alison played it a little bit. But no, apart from that, it was almost going in sort of fresh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Which allows, I think that helps Alan and the actor to collaborate in the session to create something that will do really well.
Yeah, I played like the first beginning of it, so I got like a gist of like, oh, you'll chat with people, stuff like that. But I had no idea it was going to get as deep as it does, as far as like dealing with and unpacking your past and like, just like love and like all these different things about family and stuff. I had no idea it was like going to go that deep in that regard. So that was really fascinating as like the lines came.
And yeah, Alan, actually, like, what would you say about it? Do you think that's generally like good practice, bad practice?
whether to play the game or not?
No, I guess like whether to get like a lot of that stuff and provide it to the actors ahead of time, or do you think there is something to be said about having just enough so you guys can collaborate on like the interpretation of the character?
I've done a bit of voice acting myself, and I think from my perspective, I do like to be more informed. Like the more I can learn about it, it kind of helps form the character in my mind. But I feel like every actor has slightly different process, and so I mean, this totally worked for Sean, that approach of going in relatively blind. And I think all the actors, like, we chose them for a reason. We cast you because we liked what you were putting out in the audition. So that's a good starting place, at least. We know that the actor has their own vision of who this is, and we can build from there as we go.
Yeah. Building is, absolutely the right thing as well. Because playing through the build of the game and hearing your guys' voices in it, it was really like, wow, they really owned that. That is their character. Absolutely. It really felt like that as well. Yeah.
I think from an actor's point of view, you've got to have that confidence in your ability to portray that character, because the listener can hear someone who's not confident in, and then it almost becomes they're just reading it because they don't have the confidence to embody the character. And with these kind of games, it's all about character. It's about these characters interacting with each other, interacting with themselves, and if the player doesn't believe it, then it's not worth doing, really.
Yeah, I think the actor needs to make decisions with each take. What am I going to do with this line? They need to make a decision. Sometimes they're bold decisions, but it's much easier to rein somebody in who's like an actor who's like being wild with some type of emotion. It's much easier to pull them back from that if they're getting too over the top than it is to push them from a static performance.
And yeah,
Oh.
and I feel like as long as those choices and those like, even if they may be a little bit out there, as long as they're rooted in like a holistic view of who you see this character to be, then it's gonna feel real. As long as
Hmm.
it to some extent, and even if it's reined in a bit, at least it's still coming from an honest place of this is who I feel that character is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if the actor makes a choice that I feel like maybe doesn't fit this situation or this particular interaction, then I'll let them know, and that's kind of where I come in as a director of saying, no, I think the emotion of this scene is a little more like this, or just nudge them. But
Mm-hmm.
but it's easier if they have made a choice to begin with.
Mm.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the way I worked with Urshu is I had his sort of trickster persona, which is
Mm-hmm.
the initial thing you come across. It's his outer shell.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I have his more comforting, calmer persona that he wants to help them.
Mm-hmm.
And then deeper than that, I've got his hurt,
Mm-hmm.
softer inside gooey center,
Yeah.
which he keeps locked up very tight, and that only comes out when he's like very vulnerable.
Yes.
And we can
Yeah.
sort of slide up and down that depth.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I sort of saw him. I sort of like starting in levels.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'd say to Alan, like, "Oh, do you want me to go more trickster, or do you want me to be a bit more like, calm,
Mm-hmm.
gentle?" And I think that worked really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like Sean is like super seasoned and like knows all these great like voice acting things and is like always studying it. It's great. And like I feel like you have
You have to study
great
Stanislavski. Accurate.
I mean, but I feel like you have great intention and like I feel very green. I am very green to voice acting. When I think back to like undergrad, I minored in theater in undergrad. And so like back then I did like table work, for different characters and stuff like that. But this time around it's been more so like me relating to the character and relating to the different things she's going to through and like how she's described and stuff. And then like say when Sean mentions things or like one day we're chatting and Sean was mentioning like, oh, these are all the things that have really helped me as I've learned from my mentor and stuff like that. I've started like adopting some of them and I think like through Alan's direction and stuff, I've realized, oh, some of the things Sean says, I feel like I wasn't intentionally deciding to, but like, oh, Vivi, I do have certain things that are like go-tos to for Vivi's kind of layers of like her sarcasm and her kind of corporate, hello, I'm interviewing you to like her sarcasm and to like, this is how I really feel. And then it's just kind of, oh,
Yeah.
this my heart. And that's how yeah.
Yeah, there were times I would tell you to be in journalist mode of like she's
Yeah.
all business right here.
Yeah.
Well, that's segued perfectly into me putting the spotlight on you, Alan. So, as the director, you're kind of doing this in a certain respect for all of the characters. And
Mhm.
how are you, I guess, internalizing what needs to happen for each character, like the guidance? Like, what is that looking like for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first step was just reading through the script, getting to know the story
Mhm.
and these characters. I read through the audition sides as well, the character bios that our writing team had come up with. And so that helped me get a sense of who they were, what their core personalities were. And then I could see over the course of the script, each one of them has an arc as they develop. And of course, that's also based on the player decisions.
Mhm.
So whatever you're picking in each scene as a player is going to affect whether that character really grows or whether they stay stagnant where they were with their problems and so forth. So reading ahead and being aware of the script would help me be able to inform the actor of what that is. Like, where are you? What are you talking about? Who are you talking to? And what is the like smaller little mini arc of this scene?
Yeah, I and I guess it's really interesting because like the choices that Vivi makes is so rooted in her ability to take down her walls, and the way that the characters speak to her is really dependent on that. Was that like a paradigm that you were thinking of, like, oh, you're more guarded, or the walls are down? Like what does direction look like in the booth, I guess?
Oh, well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as my process, I would leave a lot up to the actor. I don't feel like it's my job to get in there and like preface every line of like, now you're supposed to feel this. Now you feel that. Now say it this way. So what we did is we had all the lines in a spreadsheet, very common in game scripts. And I would have the actor go through and give me 3 takes of each line and ask them, try to vary up the pacing, try to vary the emphasis, maybe sort of nuances of that emotion, but still keep it in character for who you're playing. And if they gave me like an A, B, and C take, and I felt like we got what we needed, great. We move on. I don't need to like put my thumbprint on it or anything. If there was something that I thought they needed to change, then I would give them direction. And sometimes that would be super simple, just like, I think you should be angrier here, or you should end more abruptly or talk faster. Sometimes we're very simple things like that. Other times I would, a technique I like to use is to get something evocative, almost like stage directions. Like I'm explaining to them, imagine that you're feeling of this. So a good example I remember from recording with Sarah, she voiced Asha. There was an argument between her and Susura, and she was winning the argument. She's basically calling them out for abandoning their family. And so she's getting really cutting and like, you should be ashamed and that sort of thing. And so there was one line where I told her, right at the end of this line, get meaner and quieter. Because I think there's a certain power to when instead of blowing up at somebody, you actually get quiet. And I said, imagine you're leaning over his shoulder as you slip the knife in. And so obviously, in our game, Asha is not literally stabbing Susura.
Yeah.
But I was giving her that as sort of like an inspiration of the emotion I wanted her to bring to that line. And so it was really nice to hear her do that, and that was the right choice for that line.
Mm-hmm.
And so I cannot wait to hear that line in play in the game.
Yeah. Now, I also have to admit, as a director, sometimes I have an idea. I say, try it this way.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the right way. I end up listening to it later, and I'm like, no, the actor's first instinct was actually the best take for this line. So that
Always
happens.
Good to get one for safety, though.
Plenty of times. Yeah, get one for safety.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And occasionally an idea would pop in my head, and I'm like, I'm not sure if this really works, but let's try it. And so we would try it. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't.
It feels a little bit like sculpting or painting in a way, where you might try out like different shades, and you're like, actually we could probably try this, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Yeah,
and it's a
really
collaboration with the actor. I was always open to any of the actors if they said, I have kind of an idea. I'm like, all right, let's hear it. And sometimes that ended up being the take we would use.
Wow, fantastic. So to the voice actors, Sean, Allison, bonus points if you can make Alan blush. But what was your favorite part about getting direction from Alan?
Oh goodness!
You have to make him blush. That's what we're aiming for here.
I'm like, to begin.
We simply must say good things about this man while he's in the room with us, and he cannot leave.
I touched on this on the last podcast, how he was very much a guide rather than a I know the word is director, but he wasn't telling me what to do. He was guiding me along, and a lot of we'd go through quite a few lines sometimes, and I'd do the 3 takes, and he'd be like, "Yep, go next line." 3 takes, next line, and then sometimes he'd be like, "No, let's work with this. Let's try something out," which was really nice. And again, like he said, if I wanted to try something, he'd let me try it. You know, or if I was just like, I know you said it was good, but I didn't like it. Let me try it again. Let me just put a bit of sauce on it or something.
A little bit of flavoring there.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Alison? What are your kind of favorite memories of getting directed by Alan on this project?
Yeah. Alan's feedback in direction feels so relatable to me. It feels like kind of like what he was getting at before. He would say things like, imagine you've just put your arm around that person and you're comforting them, or just like things like that, where it's like, okay, I know exactly the droids you're looking for. Like that's how it felt. It just felt like this conversation, and I felt comfortable all the time. And it just felt very like if we had to work on the line or something like that, it's like we always felt on the same page. If it wasn't quite right, I could tell it wasn't quite right. And he was like, yeah, that one. And we're like, okay. And just kind of going back and forth. But it never felt frustrating. It never felt like, oh, why? It just was like, oh, we're just digging and digging until we can find the gem together. That's what it. Yeah. But yeah, very relatable and very like comforting and conversational.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say,
Thank you both.
if there was a line that was tricky or I just wasn't getting it, he was very patient as well, because some of Urshu's lines are long
Alliterative?
and alliterative.
Oh,
And
yes.
like there's a technique where if you've got a very tricky line, is to put a pen or a pencil in your mouth and then say the line, and it's like but it opens your mouth up, so it's like, and then it
Wow. I'm gonna try that
allows
one.
your mouth to remember it, and then when you say it without the pencil there, it's a lot easier. So he was very
Wow.
very patient
Yeah,
with my
you
weird
literally did that
techniques. I did,
in one
I
line.
had to. There was some of them which were, they really tested my my acting chops.
Mhm.
It's like
And
I had to
also,
do
what?
some.
Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
go on, Alan.
I was just saying, once in a while, there would be a line come up that we needed to almost workshop it to kind of figure out, well,
Yeah.
what is the angle? What's the motivation in this particular case? Usually that was very clear from the writing because it is a great script. But every once in a while, we would have to, both of us, kind of dig in and unpack what is supposed to be happening in this line. And so then we might do, instead of doing 3 takes, we might do 10 takes and
Yeah.
then eventually get to it.
And do you then look at that after the fact and kind of contextually kind of piece it together with the lines that came before and after and try and find the best take of that makes sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know if we succeed in making Alan blush, but perhaps we can work on it this episode. We will see. There's also someone who isn't here who we cannot say enough good things about, which is Lindsay. And I'm basically teeing up the next question, but Lindsay and Alan were very good about making sure that your spaces were private, intimate spaces, that you guys were able to do recording without feeling like you were being observed by members of the team, because I know many people on the team were very curious, but they were very good about making sure that you guys were able to do that in a private space, and I'm glad that we were able to provide that for you. And that being said, we're going to talk about emotionally heavy scenes. Ooh. So, how do you get in the right headspace for a really heavy scene?
For me, like I don't have a set method, but my instinct is it's a lot of my body language and it's a lot of my breathing, which I feel like breathing is like I feel like focus on breathing. I feel like that's such an answer for like most things. Like martial arts, breathing.
Yeah.
Like
No,
only done.
but it's so true though. It's about being in the
Yeah,
right headspace, right? Yeah, yeah, that makes
yeah.
total sense. So,
Like
what does that look like for you?
yeah, like
Yeah.
I think for some of my, because literally just earlier today we were recording like literally the angriest scenes for Vivi. And I'm like, she's
Ooh.
like the match just going off on everybody. And for those, I would like take a deep breath. And it was like it's as if I'm like charging up my breath. It's that it's I think about and kind of like try to embody the feeling of I'm so angry that steam is like coming out of my mouth and at my nose, everything. And it's like my voice trembles a bit. Sometimes with her, my voice gets deeper when I'm either really angry or I'm really like just distraught or uh like feel like I'm losing my mind. Like there's moments where she's seeing things that she has no idea what she's seeing. It's nightmares right in front of her. And so my voice is deeper and trembling. And so I kind of like use my breath, take a deep breath and kind of hold it a bit and really just think about that emotion and just with my body language I'll like move my arms and my shoulders in a way as if I'm really and I try to visualize like saying it in the direction of someone. I'm not like visualizing anybody but just kind of like as if I'm talking to somebody over my mic. So that's kind of what I do.
How about you, Sean? I mean, have you had some really heavy moments that you needed to prepare for mentally?
I mean,
Yeah.
this has probably been the most emotionally sort of all over the place that we've done, and I've really enjoyed it because I love character work. I love working through those kind of things, like in workshops and stuff. But when I'm doing a role that's very sort of hard hitting emotion, like grief or love or tragedy, that kind of thing, I really try and get into. I mean, I always try and think about the role and be the role. It's not like method acting where I'm still pretending to be the role when I'm outside the booth. No, it's just
You're in a little
when,
conductor's hat,
yeah,
just walking around your house.
exactly. But when I'm behind the mic, when I'm putting on the role, I try and become that character. What are they feeling? Why are they feeling that way? And I can use a whole range of my experiences to help with that. And if I know why they're feeling that, then me, Sean, will know how I'll react to that. And whether that's, whether I get quite quiet and quite, I can't really speak and I'm stumbling, or whether I'm really happy and I'm just like, this is amazing and I just love it. And I just really try and feel it on the inside, like right down in my core. And I think that will help get me those emotions that sound real. And that's what we want. We want real human emotions that, can't be replicated by, computer AI or something like that.
Absolutely, yeah, preach. And I want to pitch this over to you, Alan and Cece. Like, I guess we have our actors, having this level of vulnerability. How do you make sure that it's a good space for them to be able to do that?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like someone alluded to earlier of like making it feel like a safe space of from the beginning, setting it up as a collaboration and like they can feel free to express what they need to. There may be some weird mouth sounds happening, it's like just, don't be embarrassed of like where your voice cracks or things like that, giving them the support to know that we're in it together. We're trying to find, the right way to portray this. So I think once you've established that trust, then it can flow from there. What do you think, Cece?
Yeah.
Well, for me as one of the production assistants, so my job is actually to stay muted during the session so that I don't so that my mouth noises don't distract the voice actors or get in the way of their recordings. So for me, maybe I'll send like emojis. It'll be like, oh, fire emoji, that was such a great line, or a heart emoji, 100, like, yes, that was fire, right? So I'll send things in the chat like every now and then, or like after the end of the recording session, I'll be like, oh my gosh, that was incredible. But yeah, just for me, it's like I'm not going to get in the way during the actual recording. Yeah.
Yeah, because I had Kyle as the production assistant during my sessions for probably 80% of them, and then Lindsay for the last two or something. And Kyle was always like my biggest cheerleader. Like at the beginning of the session, like, oh, Sean, you're amazing, you're killing it. And like during the breaks, like, oh, that was so good. I love that line. And it was just like, oh, thank you. God.
Yeah, our team is super supportive.
Yeah, and I think the assistant or coordinator role is also very important, just to have a second set of eyes and ears.
Mm-hmm.
So while the actor and I are focused on maybe finding the emotion, the coordinator may catch sometimes when like a word was left out or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's invaluable to have somebody else to be paying attention to.
Right, that's really important because you want to be focused on the emotion and what's actually happening in the story, and you don't need to cut that side of your brain to think about the logistical stuff as well. You've got, someone really helpful like Cece there to think about that. All right, so we've talked about getting prepared for being in the right headspace for an emotionally heavy scene. Now, how do you get back out of it? What are things you recommend? Is it cat pictures? I believe it would be for me. Over to you, Sean. How do you get back out of that headspace so you can go about your life and your normal?
I mean, just like after a session.
Yeah, after a session. Yeah.
It's gonna sound really like as soon as I get out of that door, I'm just back to being Sean again.
Virtue has been left behind.
Because there is this thing called bleed, which is a dangerous thing that can happen, where the character will bleed into your everyday life, and it can happen. But I've just never really had that sort of headspace. Maybe I haven't done any really horrendous roles where actually no, I did play a this awful human being in a Wild West who I modelled off Hitler and Trump if they had a baby and were in the Wild West. That was a really horrible man, and that took a beer afterwards. Yeah, usually I'll just go and play video games after a session, or maybe watch some TV. But yeah, most of the time I'm just fine.
Yeah, you're just fine.
I know that's a weird answer, but
No, I mean, also I think there's something to be said about your physical location as well. It feels like this is the space that you've designated to being this character, and then I'm going to leave this character behind this door. Maybe there's something to that.
Yeah, I think there's that almost a symbolism of you close the door. On the inside, lots of things go on in here, and then when I leave that room, it's fine.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And how about you, Alison? Do you you guys just said that you just came off straight from a very heavy session, and how were you able to come straight from that?
Yeah. So I would say there was an instance where it's interesting because usually I can just kind of flip and it's fine. Because yesterday was a session where it was the angry, the most mad I've been scenes, and the warm, heartfelt, wow, we've all made it together scenes, are one after the other at the end of the script. So yesterday it was very much and then there was cute crushing feelings. I love this person. And so it just kind of was oh, okay, guess we're doing this now. But today I was oh, during our 5-minute breaks, I'm going to watch some puppies. I'm going to look at some videos. I watched this cute video of this guy singing a song passionately, and this puppy was oh, and she was with them. and then like be back into like endearing feelings. But I would say also like I'm that person who's like, oh, okay, after this scheduled thing, I gotta do this and I gotta study this, I gotta work on that. So like usually after a session, I'm like, alrighty, now I've gotta work on this or jump back into like coding this or whatever. So yeah, usually my schedule is what gets me like, ooh, ooh, ooh. Or I'll go for a walk. It's probably one of those three things.
What is it?
I'm just busy or going for a walk. Yeah.
Puppy's busy walk. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Alan, having done some voice acting before, is there anything that you've fallen back on to, get back into, Alan?
I feel like I'm a bit like Sean, where it's just being behind the mic puts me in a different mindset and I do it. And then when I leave the mic, I sort of just leave it there.
Yeah.
So I never encountered any like bleed, as Sean was referring to.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, it makes me think a lot about like the roles we play anyway in our lives, like in the context of Small Loon and the Ouroboros Express, like yes, I am directing this game, and yes, like I run the meetings and I have to make a lot of the decisions in the game, but that is a thing that I kind of compartmentalize away. Every other time I feel like I'm just me. And we can talk, but I do think that it is important to set up certain boundaries as well when you are in a working situation. And it doesn't seem so different from voice acting, because it is very much a role and a job you're doing as well. So I can totally see that being, the pros that you are, being able to make that flip right away. So we are going to talk about production next, and this is really interesting because there's a few things happening behind the scenes. We're a volunteer studio, we're across several time zones. We have to be very clever and lean with our resources, so I imagine all of that is contributing to certain elements of voiceover production. So yeah, working asynchronously. I mean, Cece, Alan, what does that look like? Setting that up, different sessions and making sure that all of our actors are able to come in at a time where it's not silly o'clock for them.
Yeah, Lindsay really was taking the lead on that as far as scheduling, getting everybody's availability, and then choosing windows of time when we all were. As you say, we are spread out across many time zones. I think every time zone in the States. We also have people in the UK. One of our actors is in Korea.
Yeah.
So, yeah, when you've got that many different places that you have to schedule for, it was tricky. But we managed to make it work.
Yeah, and I think Lindsay did a great job also of pulling on more people when like some people were going on vacation, which, obviously that's fantastic, right? Or just like schedules not lining up. Some people got paying work, so it was like awesome, but that changes their schedules. So Lindsay was like, all right, let's pull on like 3 more people to help with the VO production. And then the way that our schedules lined up after that, then it worked out nicely, where we were able to slot in nice 2-hour, 3-hour sessions with Alan and a voice actor and one of the production assistants. Yeah.
Oh, that's also brought to mind as well. Alan, you are doing sometimes 2 sessions in a day, and one session is about 3 hours. Is that right?
Typically, yeah. There were sometimes just because of the person's availability that we would do 2 hours or 90 minutes. But yeah, we would try to shoot for 3. Usually industry standard for like union jobs is a maximum of 4 hours.
Yeah, I was always I was like, I can go an hour longer. And it's like, no, we've got to go home. Let's get into it. Go on, let's go all night.
Yeah, so how do you feel? Well, I guess like I mean, there's lots of thinking that has to go on, I think, because it's not just people reading lines from the script. Alan, for you, I imagine you're kind of keeping track of like what's going on in the story and making sure you're giving the right guidance. Voice actors, you're interpreting the characters. Like, how do you guys maintain energy levels and stamina and that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's acting as a director, you have to be very engaged, very like lean forward the whole time. You've got to be paying attention to what they're saying and how they're saying it. So even though I'm just sitting down the whole time, it does have some mental fatigue to it because you have to stay focused the whole time. And I would imagine it's similar for the actors. You can't just be daydreaming while you're saying a line.
That would be a very different production. I imagine that game would sound very different. Yeah. I mean, how about you, Alice and Sean? Like, how do you keep up your energy levels when it comes to recording? You know, especially thinking about you, Alison, as well, the amount of lines you've had to do.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, you go, Alison. Yeah.
I would say, yeah, because like usually the sessions are 3 hours long, and also, yeah, the amount of lines is intimidating at times. It was intimidating as I was going along. Like, one, just being, being very green to it, A, and then B, also being like, you know, okay, like one, feeling very comfortable in the setting with Alan and like going over stuff, but also low-key feeling like, oh, I hope I'm going fast enough. I hope, you know, I'm getting things done at the rate I should be. So like it's kind of like that in the back of my mind, but at the same time, so it's like that's kind of like a initiative to be like, okay, I want to be extra focused for this whole 3 hours as much as I can. And I just kind of, I don't know, each break, just keep going over the lines. Sometimes as the session goes on for longer, I'll take more time to read through, especially if it's like a bigger chunk of a line to like read through before I start saying it. Because it's just inevitable as it's gone on when you're getting into like the last hour, a last half hour, I'll notice that like, oh, my sight, you know, reading is like, oh, I'm like adding words that aren't there, or like I'll just like make assumptions for sentences, and it just, you know, is hard to like keep that, but I just kind of try and read ahead as much as I can and take my time, and yeah.
Yeah, stay focused. And how about you, Sean? How do you kind of keep up those energy levels?
Well, because I've been doing voice acting for about 2 years now, and I just love it. I like, you know, I wake up in the morning, I'm thinking about voice acting. I'm thinking about during the day. I'm thinking about it while I'm ignoring doing my marketing. And
Excuse
because
me.
I'm like, well, do I have to do this? Why can't I go and find some auditions to do? Like, I practice every day. You know, if I have to read something out loud into a microphone every day, whether that's an audition piece, whether that's something that like a work job that I've got, or whether it's just a script I've pulled up from this script library that I have, and I will just practice that. So it's all about, like, the thing that keeps me going is just that love and passion for being behind the mic and telling a story. That's why I'm like, go on, Alan, let's do another hour. Let's go. Carl's like, I want to go to bed.
A hollow man just after his 5th session of the week.
No.
No, but that's so wonderful to hear. And I do need to say, like, that is one thing that I've admired so much about you guys, you know, being a new addition to the group. And I'm so inspired by your love and your dedication to honing your craft, whatever that looks like. You know, Alison, whether it's like voice acting or game design, or your love of game development, Sean, whether it's, you know, acting and interpreting characters and really delving deep, it's been so inspiring to just be around, and I really want to commend you guys for that as well. It's really wonderful. So yeah, I mean, I guess then we have our friend, our enemy, our frenemy, technology. What did the recording tech setup look like? Can you guys tell me a little bit about, like, were there any quirks, any challenges, stuff like that? Oh, Alison, I'm gonna have to pick on you. What happened?
Oh my
He's got
gosh.
some quirks and challenges.
So I first started recording when I was still back home in the suburbs of Chicago. And so, you know, everything was chill and stuff. But then I moved to England. I moved to Manchester for grad school. And so, oh my God, like moving here, it was so messed up. The first few weeks of like, oh, I'm ready to move into my apartment. What? I can't yet? Okay, I guess I'm just gonna be in some random Airbnbs. It's still not ready? Damn, what can I do? Oh, finally I can move in. Why is there construction? Why are people opening their doors? Oh, and then the Airbnbs, it's like, why is this woman out in the middle of the street with her kids? Go back inside in the street. It was so crazy. It was just like, and earlier today, I was just like, we had to move the session till later, like right before this, because like construction was going on. Like today, I was like, what is happening? Someone is scraping at my door. I was like, what? I was like, hello? I went to the door. I opened the door. And this man's like, oh, sorry, I'm changing the numbers on the door. I'm almost done. I was just like, I came back and Alan's like, I thought we were about to enter like a horror story of like Allison being attacked. I was like, no, you're about to hear me attacking somebody else. I'm tired of being interrupted. It's been wild. It's really been crazy, but we're almost there.
Wow, gosh, we are very nearly there. Yes, that is the other thing as well. Lots of moving across the country. Lindsay moving across the country. You fully just crossing the pond, as it were. How about you, Sean? How's tech quirks, obstacles? What's that been like for you?
I think there were that many. I think I forgot to hit record once, and I think we lost one line.
Oh,
and I was like, hang on. Am I recording? No, I'm not. Oh no. Go back. When did I last? I was like, oh, it's fine. It's fine.
Well, you've got the Urshu cave there that you can record from.
Yeah, like
the cave.
having my own studio at home is like a godsend. Like I built this myself, and it's soundproof, sound treated. It's all set up. I've got everything I want. So I mean, it's because I do this all the time, so it's nice to have a dedicated space.
Yeah.
Did you look up guides online for how to do that?
Yeah, well, I part of something called Gravy for the Brain, which is a community and subscription service that does a lot of teaching. They have courses on voice acting. They have webinars. They have live coaching sessions. They have loads of things. It's a really good service for voice actors. And one of their courses is like how to build your own studio. The only thing I wish is if I could stand. That's the only problem. This is the roof, and I'm sitting down right now.
I thought that room was a lot larger. It was messing with my perspective.
I'm trapped.
You going like this reminds me of like a 90s music video. Reminds me of like
I don't want no scrub.
I was on a chatting with a bunch of other VOs on this online social, and one of them described my my room as like the voiceover TIE fighter because it looks it's so small.
Yeah, the cockpit.
Yeah, it's like having a cockpit TIE fighter. I need to get some like really nice like lighting or something, some LEDs.
It was like those purple like YouTuber
I
lights or
just need
something.
to get a little bit. Like I've got my ring light behind theirs.
You always did really well. Yeah. No, so it's so funny the contrast between what is going on with Alison to Sean being like, I haven't really had any.
Seasoned voice actor versus literally was like, okay, I can do this.
There's also literally moving.
I will say during the summer, it's not been too bad this year, but when it's like really sunny and people are like, you know what, today it's time to get the lawnmower out or the like tree trimmer thing, all I can hear is and it's like, well, that recording's useless.
Oh no.
Like I'll record in the evening.
Oh bless. I mean, well, all that being said, the magic of editing and our fantastic audio team, everything sounds amazing despite all of that stuff, all of the drama, lawnmowers, women outside with their kids and whatnot. Get back inside. I'm trying to record here. Well, I'm going to bring it down to my favorite thing to talk about, which is learnings and progression and, reflection, what would you say is something that you've learned from being on this particular production that you might take with you for future projects? Let me hand it over to you, Cece.
Well, I think one of the main things I learned is just about voiceover direction. So I've helped with voiceover production once before, but it was for a game jam product, much smaller, and it wasn't full lines recorded. We were just taking cuts of like sighs and other sound effects like that. So this was totally different. So I've learned a lot more about like the number of takes that you want to look out for, and just also I've been really blown away by just the range of emotions, kind of getting back to what Sean was talking about earlier. You just trying different things and just seeing how Alan has, gently guided, when he feels that the direction is necessary, but also just letting them be. So it's been fantastic. Yeah, it's been very cool to get to be a fly on the wall. Oh, totally. One of the things has been, more practical, just like, when we divide the next script, maybe we should make it so that it's not more than 3 lines long per read through. So that's something very practical that I've come away with, but some other things are just like, you can really tell how distinct the characters are. And I think that's something that I still have to work on quite a bit as a writer, is just making sure that each character in a game or in a scene comes through very strongly, and that it's very clear that they're unique, right? Like, you can instantly tell if it's an Urshu line versus a Vivi line, right? So just making it very clear and letting the characters shine through. I think also, and tongue twisters, riddles, that sort of thing. I think also just hearing the lines being spoken out loud, I'm just like, oh, okay, I really like that turn of phrase, kind of like mentally file that away in the toolbox.
Yeah, the little
we'll
mental
do the
library.
tongue twisters. We'll just like...
So what I'm hearing, Sean, is the next time we
them.
have you in a project, more tongue twisters.
More tongue twisters.
More alliteration.
More.
It's the lines which are almost like a paragraph long, and you get to the end and you just flub the second to last line. You're like, no.
Well, I mean, the perfect opportunity to pass it on over to you, Sean. I know that this is the most amount of lines that you've had to do.
Yeah, this is definitely the biggest single project that I've been on, which has been great. I think the thing I've learned most is just the sort of the behind the scenes, because you have sort of let me into this little family of small lone studio. Well, I just never left, really. That was the thing. You invited me in, and then I didn't leave. I just hang out in the Discord, and I'm like, "Ooh, what's going on?" So I've learned loads just from just osmosis, just listening in, and from like the behind the scenes things from Lindsay, things from Alan, like what's going on in the post-production side, which has been really interesting, because I hardly ever hear about that. I usually just do the job, get paid, and then I go off and do more auditions and do more jobs.
Like a hitman, like just kind of you and your TIE fighter, you just zoom off. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But this time around, you're like, oh man, this gang of misfits, I must stick around to see what they get up to. Yeah.
I mean, I've gotten another audition out of it through Lindsay, so
Always
good to make relationships in this business. Voice acting is definitely about the relationships that you make.
And because of the I guess the volume, was there anything interesting you picked up regarding maybe like stamina, like energy levels, like we were talking about, or like staying with a character much longer than what you're used to in the past?
It basically confirmed what I sort of hoped on the inside, that yes, I can do this. Yes, if Larian, calls up and said we're doing, not Baldur's Gate 4, but whatever their next thing is, I could do that. I could do a bajillion lines. But I think it's really cemented my love and passion for games as a voice actor. That is what I want to do as my is my thing.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of Small and what we do is really kind of confirming to people. It's like, yeah, you have what it takes. You just haven't had the chance to prove it, and we are proving it right now. And so, Larian, hire Sean, you cowards. I'll fight you. Okay, so Alan, how about you? What have you learned on this project that you might take with you?
I think something that was already part of my philosophy, but maybe I've learned to do better, is what we were talking about earlier of creating that safe space for the actors, so that they feel open to just go wherever the line leads them. And then I can like nudge as needed. We were talking, somebody was mentioning sort of like keeping up with the pace of the sessions earlier. And so with that, I always try to give the actor all the time they need to get the line where they want it to be. But once that's done, we move right along. We keep it moving. So like
Yeah, don't dwell.
no chit chat between takes. Move on to the next line and then do the same thing again. Take your time, be patient, get it right. But we've got, in Allison's case, more than 2,000 lines to get through. So gotta keep on track there. So
yeah, you really can't chit chat during those sessions. Otherwise, you will never finish.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the amount of writing we've got,
I feel like I learned how to manage that balance of like, I hope I didn't come off as brusque ever or like not feeling, but it's like, you give me the takes. If they're good, I say good, next. And we just kept it moving. So I feel like that ended up being very effective. And so I'll feel more confident about that going into whatever my next project is.
And over to you, Alison. What's one thing that you've learned about being on this production?
Oh, really quick. One thing I remembered to say in an attempt to try and make Alan blush is, did y'all know that he directed Andre 3000? When he told me that, I was like, what? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, my old job was as a writer for Cartoon Network Games. I was there for many years, and I don't know if anybody remembers a really old cartoon called Class of 3000 that starred Andre Benjamin from, or Andre 3000 from Outkast, the rap group. And so he was the star of that show. We made a game for that show, and he came into, like, he was the voice of the game. It was a game where you could like just build little musical snippets of stuff, because the show was all about him being a music teacher.
Wow.
So he came into our studios. I got to sit in there, meet him, and direct him during the session. So,
wow.
Yeah, that's probably my biggest sort of celebrity name drop. And also, I don't think very many people have ever done that.
Yeah. Wow. So okay. We're gonna tease out more of these stories from you about your Cartoon Network days at some point, Alan. But in the meantime, Alison, what is the thing that you wanted to talk about learnings wise?
Yeah. I feel like I've learned a lot about the process of everything. Especially since my focus is game design. I'm just always wanting to try different aspects of game design. It's with voice acting, it definitely was like, every now and then I always think like I miss acting, but it's never been something that was accessible at the time or felt like I could jump back into. So like this felt like a beautiful opportunity for that. But like in general, I tried to learn more about different mediums so I can understand game development as a whole. So it's just been really cool, like seeing y'all being like the well-oiled machine that y'all are, and like knowing like, oh, okay, in these scenarios, this is what the producers do, this is what the directors do, this is who I would like go to talk about this or ask about that if I needed help for this or that, this is how communication goes. So I think just like getting to witness the communication that's been going on between Lindsay, between Alan and everybody, seeing like asking the writers if we need clarification for something or, just seeing how all of that works together was really, really great. And I feel like just gives me a better understanding of really what to aspire to when it comes to like working together and collaborating and being communicative as a team. So like there's definitely things I want to apply to other teams I'm on and teams I'm trying to build up for sure.
Amazing. Okay, all really great learnings. Well, I've held you guys here hostage for long enough, and I don't have Urshu's powers, unfortunately, so I can't keep you here. So we are going to say goodbye for now, but hopefully we'll see you again sometime soon on a future project or future podcast. Who can say? Who can say? But for now, let us say goodbye to people watching. Bye bye now.
Bye bye.
Bye.